It was early morning in New York City, the kind of quiet that only exists before the city fully wakes up. The streets were still half empty, with only a few taxis moving under the fading glow of streetlights. A light mist hung in the air, and the distant sound of a subway train echoed beneath the ground. Inside a small, worn apartment in Brooklyn, a man named Daniel Carter sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. He hadn't slept much. The clock read 5:12 a.m., but he had already been awake for over an hour. Today wasn't just another day. It was the day everything could change, or fall apart completely. Daniel was 34 years old, but life had aged him faster. There were lines on his face that didn't belong to someone his age. He had once been full of ambition, the kind of person who believed that hard work would always lead to success. Years ago, he moved to New York with a simple dream, to build something meaningful, something that mattered. But like many dreams in a big city, his had slowly faded under the weight of reality. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked outside. The city looked peaceful from up here. It didn't show the struggle, the competition, or the loneliness. It just looked beautiful. Daniel took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "Just one more try." That sentence had become a habit, a promise he made every morning. A few months ago, Daniel had lost his job. He worked at a small tech startup that collapsed overnight when funding disappeared. One day he had a stable income, and the next, nothing. Since then, he had been surviving on savings that were now almost gone. Rent was due in 3 days. His landlord had already warned him, no payment, no more chances. But today, Daniel had an interview. Not just any interview, a final chance. The company was located in downtown Manhattan, in a tall glass building that stood among some of the most successful businesses in America. The company's name was Horizon Systems, known for hiring only the best. Daniel knew he wasn't the best, not anymore. But he also knew something else. He wasn't done yet. He got dressed in his only formal shirt, slightly wrinkled but clean. He looked at himself in the mirror. For a moment, doubt crept in. "Why would they choose you?" a voice inside his head whispered. He closed his eyes, then opened them again, stronger this time. "Because I won't quit," he answered quietly. The subway ride to Manhattan was crowded, as always. People stood shoulder to shoulder, most of them silent, lost in their own thoughts. Some were heading to jobs they loved. Others, like Daniel, were chasing something uncertain. When he arrived, the city was fully awake. Cars honked, people rushed, and the energy of New York surrounded him like a wave. He stood in front of the tall glass building for a moment, looking up. It felt intimidating, almost unreal. "This is it," he said under his breath. Inside, everything looked perfect. Clean floors, bright lights, people walking confidently with purpose. Daniel felt out of place, like he didn't belong there, but he walked forward anyway. At the reception desk, a woman greeted him politely. "Name?" she asked. "Daniel Carter. I have an interview at 9. She checked her computer, then nodded. "Please have a seat. Someone will call you shortly." Daniel sat down, his hands slightly shaking. He looked around. Other candidates were there too. They looked confident, well-prepared, successful. He wondered how many of them had slept peacefully the night before, without worrying about rent, bills, or failure. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, his name was called. He stood up, took a deep breath, and followed a tall man into a conference room. The man introduced himself as Mr. Reynolds, the hiring manager. His face was serious, but not unfriendly. The interview began simply, questions about experience, past jobs, skills. Daniel answered honestly. He didn't try to sound perfect. He spoke about his failures as much as his strengths. At one point, Mr. Reynolds leaned back in his chair and asked, "You've had a difficult past few years. Why should we believe that you won't fail again?" The question hung in the air. Daniel paused. This was the moment that mattered most. He could give a safe answer, a typical answer, something expected, but instead, he chose honesty. "I can't promise I won't fail," Daniel said. The room went quiet. "But I can promise that I won't stop trying. I've already lost everything once. I know what that feels like, and I'm still here. That has to mean something." Mr. Reynolds looked at him carefully, not judging, not interrupting, just listening. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt seen. The interview ended shortly after that. "Thank you for coming," Mr. Reynolds said. "We'll contact you soon." Daniel nodded, shook his hand, and walked out. As he stepped back into the busy streets of New York, he felt something strange. Relief. Not because he knew he got the job, but because he gave everything he had. The rest was out of his hands. The next 2 days were the longest of his life. Every phone notification made his heart race. Every unknown number made him stop breathing for a second. But nothing came. On the 3rd day, the day his rent was due, Daniel sat in his apartment staring at his phone. He had run out of options. Just as he was about to give up hope, the phone rang. Unknown number. His hands trembled as he answered. "Hello? Is this Daniel Carter?" "Yes." "This is Mr. Reynolds from Horizon Systems." Daniel stood up instantly. "We've made a decision," the voice continued. There was a pause. A long pause. "We'd like to offer you the position." For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. The words didn't feel real. "Are you still there?" "Yes," Daniel said quickly, his voice shaking. "Yes, I'm here." "Welcome to the team." The call ended. Daniel slowly lowered the phone. He looked around his small apartment. The same walls, the same worn furniture, the same life. But everything felt different. He wasn't at the end anymore. He was at the beginning. He walked to the window again and looked out at the city. This time, he didn't feel lost. He felt ready. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled.